While I liked the first episode of Harley Quinn, I gotta say this one was even better in almost all regards. As some fans will likely be happy to see, the cussing was toned way down. Now don't get me wrong, there were F-bombs dropped as well as other colorful language, and plenty of adult humor, but many felt the first episode almost seemed as if cursing in and of itself is funny, which is not the case at least due to most adults who this show is marketed to. So it was toned down to a more realistic level this episode. In this episode, we saw Harley trying to prove Joker wrong when he told his bros, and by bros I mean other well-known Batman villains who make their debut in this series, that Harley was nothing without him, and that in fact he dumped her. So there was only one thing for Harley to do. Crash the Legion of Doom's gathering and show how good she was doing without the Joker. And so what if the gathering turned out to be the Penguin's son's bar mitzvah? Not like it stopped her. First off, let's talk about said villains. Scarecrow, Two-Face, incidentally my personal favorite of Batman's rogues gallery, Penguin, and Bane all appeared for the first time in this series. I have a feeling not for the last. And in the case of Bane especially, I hope not, as he was hilarious. Never thought of Bane as the one the other supervillains would always pick on and disrespect, but damn if it doesn't work. Every scene with Bane was hilarious, most especially his reaction to the digs the other villains would give him, especially the Joker. But speaking of hilarious villains, the highlight among them, and the highlight of this episode, was Kite Man. Now Kite Man is easy to make fun of, and many have both in comics and on the small screen. But his awkwardly hitting on Poision Ivy was hilarious, as well as all the digs at his obvious ridiculousness. And his interaction with Poision Ivy was beyond hilarious, as she goes from being annoyed by his advances to almost finding him endearing. I know from the trailers he's apparently in more than just this episode, and I can't wait to see more of him, and hopefully more of him and Poision Ivy. It's ripe with comic gold. The fight scenes in this episode were excellent, and they were in the last episode, which I forgot to mention. While mostly a comedy, this series does have great action scenes, even if you take all the violence out of it, or, despite the violence, depending on your opinion on the graphic violence that this show has. I also love the setting for this episode. I can't explain why, but for some reason, seeing the worst of Batman's villains in such a mundane setting as a child's bar mitzvah turned out to be ripe with comic gold, which this show took full advantage of. And on a last note, on the good of the episode, Howie Mandel making a cameo voicing himself, that was awesome. There were some downsides. The most notable, although maybe it was just me, was the Penguin's character design. I don't know why, but I just don't like it. It didn't look cartoony enough, which it should have, especially since this was a cartoon after all. How did he look sillier in the Batman animated series than he did on here? I also don't want to go into detail on the specifics in here, due to not wanting to get my video flagged, but there were a couple of instances of adult humor that I don't think really landed like they were supposed to. But all in all, it was a great episode that had me laughing out loud throughout, even in the second viewing. This show has definitely already started to find its groove, and hopefully the momentum will only continue as the season progresses. So what'd you think of the episode? Be sure to leave a note in the comments below, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm Dan the Man, and I'll see you next time.